We are fully immersed in Wild Card weekend. We had 2 games on Saturday. We've got 3 today. This guy has been amazing in the Wild Card round. This guy is playing. How consistent have the Eagles been since their Week 5 bye? And this guy's trying to do something that only 3 quarterbacks have ever done in NFL history: win a road game as a rookie. We're going to break it all down for you on the Pregame PowerUp, so let's go. And welcome into a Wild Card round edition of the Pregame PowerUp here on DraftKings Network. So glad you are here with us. Us being Trey, Wingo, and Claudia. Bellafotto is here. We will also be joined by Emerson Latzia in Buffalo. Marshall Newhouse will join us to break down all the games. We'll head to the Vegas trading floor and talk to our analyst and former wide receiver, Mike Pritchard. We have a lot to get to, Claudia, and we have a full slate of games today. The first thing that your eye goes to today is what?
Emerson breaking tables.
That's a separate issue. Teaser. We'll get to that later.
87% of the bets, though, on the Bills. Lots of Eagles, Chargers love, and interested to get into underdog conversation. They may have an edge this weekend. We'll tell you why.
Yeah, we hope your Saturday went better than Mike Tomlin's or Justin Herbert's, because speaking of that, let's give you a quick recap of what happened before we get into what's going to happen today. The Texans are moving on after taking care of Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Herbert in the regular season threw 3 interceptions. In the wild card loss to the Texans, he threw 4, even though one of them was clearly not his fault. But the Texans, after a slow start, turned it into a 20-point rout, 32-12. A game in which they were home underdogs and about 80% of the bets were on L.A. Ouch! C.J. Stroud threw for 282 yards and a tutty, while Joe Mixon added 106 and a score on the ground. And the Texans are moving on to the divisional round, Claudia, for the 2nd straight season.
And if we're talking about yesterday, we have to talk about Derrick Henry and what that Ravens squad did. They ran over the Steelers in the late game yesterday to advance to the divisional round. Baltimore outrushed Pittsburgh 299-29, with Henry accounting for 189 of those yards. He also had 2 touchdowns on the night, while Lamar Jackson threw for 2 more. And the Ravens easily covered the 8.5-point spread. That MVP conversation getting a little spicier. So here's how things stand heading into today's action. The Ravens move on to face either Buffalo or Houston. If the Broncos can upset the Bills today, Baltimore will have a home game in the divisional round against the Texans, while the Chiefs, lucky them, they await the lowest remaining seed in the AFC, Trey.
The Chiefs last played, I think, around October. Bills and Broncos get us started today with Josh Allen and company. Heavy favorites at home. That has historically been a good spot for the Bills QB. As a favorite of 7.5 or more at home, Allen is 23-1 straight up in his career. Now, when it comes to covering the spread, though, Allen is just 3-7 against it overall, and he's been a big favorite in the wild card round 3 times, covering only once. But his numbers in terms of his play in this round, phenomenal. 4-1 in the wild card round in his career, throwing for almost 300 yards per game with 13 touchdowns against just 2 interceptions. And Allen enters this game as the MVP favorite, coming off his best offensive season. So for more on what to expect, we're going out to a man who knows to expect potentially anything when he's out in the field. Our own Emerson Latzia finds himself completely immersed inside the Bills Mafia. Emerson, expectations for this Bills team may be higher than they've ever been since they went to 4 straight Super Bowls in the early 90s.
Oh, yeah, man. And expectations today are extremely high for this team, because you look at how dangerous this offense has been this year. They scored 30 or more points in 12 games. That is a franchise record. And a big reason for that is since Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator middle of last year, now NFL teams who need a head coach are looking at Joe Brady. And Joe Brady's all-pro quarterback, Josh Allen, he's taking notice.
Nothing. He hasn't done anything for us. Team should stay away from him. He's been fantastic. coming into a situation last year it's not easy to switch play callers mid-year, and he came in and, from that day on, if you look at our splits, our success that we've had as a team, it's noticeable. So he's one of the most positive guys in the building. He's always got juice and energy for the guys. I think that's something that we love and appreciate about him, and he's as real as they come.
My focus is strictly on trying to win the Super Bowl here, and us trying to find a way to win this game this week. And the reality of it is some of the interviews, if interviews happen, would be next week. So really nothing for me to even think about right now, and just kind of focus on Denver. And do I aspire to be a head coach? Yeah, I would love to. Given the right opportunity, and I'm honored to even the name be thrown out there. But right now, just my focus is finding a way to win a football game this week.
So we've got 4 teams reportedly want to interview Joe Brady for their head coaching vacancy. That'd be the Jets, the Jags, the Bears, and the Saints. And the Saints, when he was in New Orleans, he was an offensive assistant under Sean Payton for 2 seasons. So they'll meet again tonight. Friends, now foes. And I've met a lot of Bills Mafia members here. Guys, come on, let's walk through real quick. And coming up in this show, I'm going to go through an initiation process to become a member of this exclusive club. Oh my. Hey, let's go, Buffalo! Let's go, Buffalo! So we'll talk to you guys a little later in this show.
Maybe, if your voice holds up. It sounds like your pre-gaming began last night, so I appreciate the respect and the effort that you're putting into this. By the way, he mentioned that Joe Brady's going to be interviewed by the Jets. I think the only 3 people that have not been interviewed for some portion of the Jets front office or coaching staff are me, Claudia Bellafotto, and Emerson Latzia.
We might get the call.
I give the Jets credit. They're being very thorough. They're being extremely thorough. But as for Buffalo, here's what this Bills offense was able to accomplish this season, Claudia. First team in NFL history with 30 rushing touchdowns and 30 passing touchdowns. First team in Super Bowl era to allow fewer than 15 giveaways and sacks in a season. And they had 12 games of 30 or more points, tied for the second most all-time behind the 2013 Broncos. And then there's this. They also beat both the number 1 seeds, Claudia, in this season. And in doing so, became the first team in NFL history to have multiple wins against 15-win teams in the regular season.
Defense a little worrisome, which I know we're going to get into with Pritch here in a second. The offense rolling on all cylinders, which is why Josh Allen is the MVP favorite.
It's interesting too, right? Because the regular season is an MVP. The MVP is a regular season award. I get that, but I think you saw in the win and the way the Ravens played last night. Look, Lamar's been unbelievable, but having Derrick Henry by his side really helps Lamar to do whatever he can do. He was an unstoppable force in that game for the Baltimore Ravens as they took care of the Pittsburgh Steelers again. And there's issues with the Pittsburgh Steelers because we're talking about a team now that has lost 6 straight playoff games. And that's actually, the amazing thing is, that's the first time in those 6 they haven't given up at least 30 points. 5 playoff losses in a row with at least allowing 30-plus points in each one of those games was the longest streak in NFL playoff history. So as good as Mike Tomlin has been for as long as he's been, I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, that's the conversation we always have around Mike Tomlin. He's one of the best coaches, of all time in the NFL, but regular season wins only matter so much until you get into the postseason. Same issue we're talking about with Lamar Jackson. He's so great, doesn't matter how many MVPs he gets, he has to get the big one.
Especially when you're talking about Pittsburgh, who has 6 Lombardi trophies. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, for more on what we saw on Saturday's Wildcard, let's go to our big man, Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, look, hey, there he is. Justin Herbert is a phenomenal quarterback. We all know this, right? That's not debatable. Here's the problem. He's now played in 2 postseason games. A couple of years ago, they had a 27-point lead, and they somehow found a way to lose to the Jags. He throws 3 interceptions all season in the regular season this year, and in the playoff game he throws 4, although one of them clearly not his fault. But we need to start seeing these results in the postseason, Marshall. We're having a little issue with your microphone real quick. We'll see. Is it turned on? Can we get that? Are you good to go?
Here we go, guys.
There we go. All good. That's all good.
Ready, go.
Cut.
Guys, Justin Herbert is the level of quarterback that we associate with him, that caliber, are guys that when they get to the playoffs, they are weapons. They aren't just there for the party. They aren't just there for the ride. And this is now multiple times that we've seen Justin Herbert kind of shrink in the moment and not be the guy that delivers his team and carries them over the top. And so eventually we have to see that if he's going to be in that echelon of quarterbacks like the Mahomes of his generation, like the Josh Allens, who were like, all right, this guy is taking over the game with his talent because Justin Herbert's big enough, his arm's strong enough. We know he's smart enough. I think Harbaugh believes in him enough, and we've seen enough where we're like, there's something there, but he has to make them change to do it. I think they were lacking some weapons. All he really had was Ladd McConkey. He had some guys who were banged up, injured, but we've seen quarterbacks with less do more. And so I think there's a lot of pressure on what Justin Herbert has not done thus far in his career.
Being called a social media quarterback, I don't know. I think he got a little bit too much flack for the talent that Justin Herbert does have. Let's talk about Josh Allen. We've talked about how he does in this first round, in the wild card round. He's great. It's getting past that is the issue for him. But this may be a tough competition. Vance Joseph, he's 0-2 in his career against him when he's DC or head coach. We know he's one of the best quarterbacks against pressure when dropping back, but now he's facing one of the highest pressure teams when it comes to this D-line. How do you see this matchup going for Josh Allen?
I mean, it's going to be a lot of what we've seen this season. A lot of him using his athleticism, extending plays, and running around and finding, now we hope, Amari Cooper and Shakir. He has carried this team like we said that Justin Herbert hasn't. He has carried his team. That's why for the most of the season, he was my MVP candidate. He was doing more with less. His offensive line has been incredible this year, which has not been the case in the past. And I think today, the way that Denver plays, I think avoid Pat Surtain, find someone else. I think they're going to dump a lot into the flats. They're going to use his legs a lot. This Denver defense is very tough. It's very solid. But I imagine he's already in the mindset when he walked there into Buffalo Bills Stadium that this game is going to fall on my shoulders because he is the best player on the field today.
And he has to carry so much of the load here. But to your point, you as an offensive lineman, you have to love this matchup because we're talking about the team that gave up the fewest sacks in Buffalo in 14 against the Denver defense, which had the most sacks in 63. So let's talk about the other side of this. Bo Nix has been phenomenal. You know, a lot of people questioned Sean Payton when he made him the 12th overall pick in the draft, the 6th quarterback to go in the first round, and he's lived up to those expectations. It's one thing to do that in the regular season. It is another thing entirely to do it in the postseason, especially as a rookie quarterback on the road. What are your expectations for Bo today?
Listen, they're not astronomical. I think he is who he is. He's, definitely performed above expectations, but we can't expect him to go in there and just carve up a Buffalo Bills defense that's been very solid this year. A defense that has now gotten Matt Milano back, that might be getting Taylor Rapp back today. These are experienced veteran players who I don't think they are scared necessarily of Bo Nix, but I think they understand the moment, who have played in playoff games. And so if you're Sean Payton, I think you're putting him in positions to succeed. You're leaning on this run game, which has been a little inconsistent this year, but leaning on an offensive line that has protected you well, taking care of the football and taking what is there and letting your defense do most of the work, because that is ultimately an amazing luxury and a privilege for a rookie quarterback that he's benefited from all season. And so I don't understand why you would go differently than that today. But Bo Nix has played well. He's made some plays. We've seen an arm from him in some of these 50, 60-yard bombs to Mims and Sutton. Like, these are things that we weren't used to seeing, or like we thought we'd see from him. And so he can take those shots. I think Sean Payton will set him up for that, but he's got to keep the team in the game.
Yeah, and Bo Nix might be feeling a little bit better against this defense. 30th in success rate since week 9, dead last in drop back success rate. So defense not looking as good as this Bills offense. Line set at 7.5, over a touchdown. Bills the favorite. Is that enough points for the Broncos to cover? You have any faith in them?
I do have faith in them to cover, but I think this is the Bills understanding what's at stake, and Josh Allen understanding his legacy on the line, and they'll figure things out to win.
Yeah, it is Buffalo's game to lose, no question about it. All right, Marshall, thanks very much. We'll check back with you. Lots more to talk about a little bit later on in the show. But just ahead here on the pregame power-up, we continue to look at Wildcard weekend. Jalen Hurts hasn't played a game in almost a month. Will the rest benefit the Eagles quarterback, or will he have to shake off the rust against a Packers team that's dealing with their own injuries? We are just getting started. Wildcard weekend edition of the pregame power-up. So much more to come. Stay with us.
are the pregame power-up. Eagles, Packers rematch of Week 1. Philly beat them 34-29. That was in Brazil. And now the Eagles are officially one of the hottest teams entering the playoffs this year. Since their Week 5 bye, they've won 12 of 13 games, with their lone loss coming in Week 16 against Washington. Overall, they won 14 games this season, tied for the most in a season in team history. Philly made the Super Bowl in each of its previous 3 seasons with 13 or more wins, Trey.
Yeah, but there was never a team that won 15 in that stretch either, and that's the problem. As for Jalen Hurts, he's been out with that concussion since leaving that Week 16 loss to the Commanders. He sat out the final 2 games of the regular season, but he's officially cleared concussion protocol and is good to go today with his team hosting the Packers. Now, over the last 3 seasons, no one has a better record at home than Jalen Hurts, 21-4 overall, including the postseason. Against Green Bay, Hurts is 2-0 in his career, putting up over 300 offensive yards with 4 touchdowns against 2 picks. Hurts is ready to go, but admits he had been taken out of his routine a little these last couple of weeks.
Just obviously being out of routine. You go through a routine every day, and being out of that is challenging. Obviously dealing with different symptoms ain't fun either.
This is why you practice. This is why you go through the process of practicing and all the things that you do at practice to get on the same page, to do everything there. We feel like we practice at a very high intensity level. This is why you go out there and do those things.
I was telling him he looked really sharp. It's really like his first time back full speed, and we had a crisp practice. He's been dialed in. He's been limited what he can do physically, obviously, but mentally he's sharp and on top of stuff.
And remember, Lane Johnson started his college career at Oklahoma as a quarterback. He knows what he's talking about. As for Green Bay's quarterback, this may be the bigger injury. Jordan Love has not been 100%, dealing with an elbow injury he suffered in the team's Week 18 loss to Chicago. Returned to practice this week and is also off the injury report and good to go. Love was experiencing numbness in his hand and had issues gripping the ball, but said that all went away on Monday. Okay, sure. Green Bay is going to be without Christian Watson, whose season is over after suffering a knee injury in the season finale. On defense, the Packers could get a boost with the return of linebacker Quay Walker from that ankle and safety Evan Williams with that quad. Both missed the final 3 regular season games, but returned to practice this week. Officially, they're listed as questionable, but all signs point to them playing against the Eagles, Claudia.
It is interesting to think about your quarterback having trouble throwing, saying it's all good, being without one of your top receivers.
Holding the ball
is an issue. That's
problematic.
That's a little worrisome. So yes, clearly they're underdogs here. Only a 5.5 though, so smaller dogs than that first game we were talking about. And I said it at the top of the show. This actually is a pretty good spot for underdogs. That leads us to our first in trend. Since 2017 in the wild card round, 67% dogs are covering 24-12 against the spread. Favorites with a 75 or more win percentage, that's Philly, that's Buffalo, that's Minnesota, all over 750 this season. They're covering at a 42% rate in the playoffs over the last 20 seasons. And this guy and Matt LaFleur, 2-0 against the spread as an underdog in the wild card and divisional round. So we'll see how that goes, because a coach can really only do so much, as we know. Although the Packers were the 7th seed last year when they defeated the 2-seed Cowboys 48-32 in the wild card round. Green Bay became the first 7th seed to win a playoff game since expansion in 2020. And if they can pull it off today, they'd be the 3rd team ever to win on the road in the wild card round in back-to-back seasons. Packers quarterback Jordan Love says the team can draw on last year's experience in this year's playoffs.
I think it definitely gives you confidence. Especially last year, it gave me a lot of confidence. I think just the way we played and executed as an offense, gave us a lot of confidence in that time. But like we said, it's some new faces, a new team, and we got to go out there and do it again. We can't live on what we might have did last year against the Cowboys, things like that. So we got to go out there and handle business and execute. But that's kind of, I feel like, what this offense can be at when we are kind of at our best. So there's definitely that's the limit or the level we need to get to.
Now, Love had 3 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and 157.2 passer rating in that 2023 Wildcard game in Dallas. He'll have his work cut out for him today against an Eagles squad that ranks number 1 in total defense and pass defense. They are the only team to allow fewer than 310 yards per game in 2024. They've also allowed just under 16 points per game, 251.5 total yards per game since their Week 5 bye, which is both first in the NFL.
Yeah, listen, again, they're not the number 1 seed, but you can make an argument that since that Week 5 bye, they have been the most consistent, best team in football. And with the injuries that you see from the Packers, if Jordan Love has any issues with that lingering injury, this could get away from them pretty quickly.
Which is why I'm saying the line at 5.5 is not surprising, because I know the Packers are a talented team, but the Eagles sneakily have one of the best rosters in the NFL and are the hottest team to end the regular season. So it does feel like a bit of a short line when you consider that.
It really does. And the question is going to be, can the real weapon for the Green Bay Packers offense get going? Because that's a very stout line he's going to be running against.
Yes, of course, Josh Jacobs. That'll be 2 great running back matchups in this one. Saquon Barkley, Jacobs. They both switched teams in the offseason. Jacobs enters this game with an 8-game touchdown streak, scoring 12 times in that span. Jacobs, the 4th player in franchise history to have 15 or more rushing touchdowns in a season since joining Jim Taylor, Amon Green, and Aaron Jones. Here's a look at how the public is betting the anytime touchdown market in this one. We got Saquon Barkley up there, a little juice, some juice on Jacobs, not too bad, around even money. And then some plus money for A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts at even money. I'm going to have to put some down on that. And Devontae Smith. For more in the action DraftKings is taking, let's head to our anonymous sportsbook informant, Captain Book.
Love hurts. Love heals. Love wheels and deals. Any field. He's good to go today to take the turf and play. So what do bettors say? Big money on the birds, their faith in Jalen Hurts to avoid the big L word. We've seen this head-to-head, but this one means much more. Both teams learned to stop the run. They really learned a lot to not pass to the slot, but get Brown or Reed a catch or 2. Hurts is cleared, the line moves. Love's cleared, the book approves. Some bettors fool themselves, but the captain isn't fooled that only Jalen rules. Because this afternoon, when Philly action flops and the pack comes out on top, we'll all remember well on January 12th, love hurt.
And taking a look at the splits for this game, we're seeing a decent amount of the bets on the Eagles to cover. Handle up there as well, near 80%, 63% of the bets on the over. Handle that way as well. As far as a prop goes, 84% of the bets on Barkley over. 105 in the hook. He needs 106 or more. And everybody's betting the over. They don't care, Trey.
They don't. And by the way, for those, we always try and find these little Easter eggs in Captain Book. That was a riff on Love Hurts, the 1974 song by Nazareth. Not to be confused with Love Stinks by the Jay Giles Band, which came out in the 80s, in case you were wondering about any of that. Right. If you weren't, then I just wasted about 30 seconds of your time. Let's waste no more time and go to the DraftKings trading floor in Las Vegas, where we find our VSiN analyst and former NFL wide receiver, Mike Pritchard. Pritch, what are your concerns going into this game about both of these quarterbacks? Jalen Hurts coming out of the concussion protocol, says he's out of his routine, and then Jordan Love, as we alluded to, having issues holding on to the football.
Well, Trey, I think you got to be cautious with Jalen because with that concussion protocol, one direct hit, all of a sudden he's back on the sideline, right? You got to be careful with that if you want to run Jalen Hurts today. And Jalen Hurts has got to be careful about that as well. I think Jordan Love is the more concerning situation with that elbow. You just don't know when that's going to flare up. You just don't know when it's going to get hit in the pocket if he has to deliver the ball a certain way. Just go back to Brock Purdy and what happened to him. Remember, he's had that elbow issue for a number of years, and here you go against a fierce pass rush. Even though his offensive line has done a great job of protecting him all year, you're still concerned a little bit about that elbow, though.
Yeah, Philly, if they have to go to Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee, a little bit of a different game. But with Jalen Hurts, they've been on fire, as I mentioned, winning 12 of their last 13, 8-1 at home. A dominant team with everything flowing on all cylinders. The defense looking like it did when it was at its prime. How much is momentum, though? I'm curious. We talk about momentum on the media side of things all the time. As a player, though, how much is that really a factor?
It is a factor because it leads into confidence, right, Claudia? I think when you're talking about momentum, you're talking about guys that are just feeling so good about themselves and that they're invincible, that can do anything out there on the field. And that's going to be the case again today, because when you think about this game and how it's going to unfold, you got two running games that need to be very, very potent and certainly effective out there. But where is the energy going to be with the momentum, though? The energy is going to be with Philly at home with that crowd, and Green Bay is going to have to match that. So momentum is a big thing in this matchup.
Yeah, momentum is as good as your starting quarterback sometimes in the NFL playoffs. They say it's your next day starting pitcher in baseball. It's how good is your quarterback going forward. But let's talk about the running backs. She mentioned Josh Jacobs before we got to you. Then we have Saquon Barkley, okay? They sat him for the final game of the regular season, so he didn't get a chance to break Eric Dickerson's record. He's got that great offensive line. Do you expect him to run a little angry and maybe a little more motivated because of that against this Packers defense that is 7th best in the NFL, giving up about 90 yards per game?
1,000%. I mean, this guy is an incredible football player, and the Eagles are better off for it. I mean, Josh Jacobs has helped Green Bay as well. I mean, the irony of the situation, a couple years ago, nobody wanted to pay a running back, right? Now both of these teams are happy that they paid these running backs, but Saquon has just elevated this roster. There's no pressure on A.J. Brown. There's no pressure on Devonta Smith. There's no pressure on Jalen Hurts. Jalen didn't even throw for 3,000 yards this year, all because you have this incredible running back coupled with that offensive line, too. So that is a tough out. Green Bay is going to have to bring the hat to stop this guy, not only running angry, but the big play potential as well with the ground game.
And on the other side, as good as Josh Jacobs is, Jordan Love dealing with the hand, Christian Watson is the main concern here, not having him. You take a look at the numbers for the squad, this offense, the air yards take a hit, total EPA drops. Explosive pass is a big outlier without him. How do they adjust in a big game like this, Pritch?
It's going to be tough, Claudia. I mean, down the stretch, Jordan Love averaged about 190 passing yards per game. I mean, he kind of struggled there with the injury. The knee, too, I think has bothered him throughout this entire season. So without a true drop back element, I don't think they have that. They're going to have to rely on Josh Jacobs and generate some play action and perhaps take a shot that way. So dink and dunk, it's a West Coast offense. It's a timing rhythm offense, so they're going to have to rely on that. Some short passes, maybe even Josh Jacobs catching the ball a few times out in the backfield as well.
Yeah, so you look at these matchups, we see some big numbers today on these games, whether it's what we're expecting from Denver. The line's a little bit closer in Philadelphia, and then the Commanders on the road against Tampa Bay. What underdogs are you leaning towards, if any, today?
Well, oh my goodness, it's tough because.
Come on, Pritch.
It's tough because I'm a dog player, though, right? It is. You know, Denver, they pull at my heart because I played there, and I want the best for them. I got a little insight on the game plan from VJ, the defense coordinator.
Go on,
continue. He's going to take some spots. He's going to pick and choose when he applies pressure to Josh Allen. So I wonder how that's going to play out. Bo Nix is going to have to run as well. So, you know, that situation, I feel like they could get inside that number, but I also feel like Buffalo will pull away in that one. So I'm on the fence with the dogs. I will in-game it, though, if I do see a situation, perhaps like with Green Bay, if they get the running game going and able to score touchdowns instead of field goals, there's a situation I might be involved with.
All right, Pritch, as always, we appreciate it. We'll see how this plays out and see if some of those inside tips you got from what's going to go on defensively against the Broncos show up against the Buffalo Bills. All right, you talk about winning. Packers could make a little history with the win today. They're just one win shy of the 49ers record for the most playoff wins all time. 3 of the other teams on this list didn't even make the playoffs this year, and the Steelers, as we know, are already out, as we said, a 6th straight one and done in the postseason.
And I will say Pritch is right about live betting. I'm all over that. Also, you could tease Buffalo down if you don't want to lay the 7, throw it in a 6-point teaser, get it under a field goal, put it with the Rams, get over a field goal, get over a touchdown. Would you take the Rams plus 7.5 against the Vikings?
I might.
8.5.
I might.
See, that's a play.
Because there's
Minus
no
120
home
DraftKings.
field advantage they're losing from going to Arizona. They don't have home field advantage.
Here we go.
Ever.
We'll get to that game tomorrow. It's been a while since the BUCS defeated the Commanders in Week 1. It's also been a while since the Commanders won a playoff game. Can Washington make Baker Mayfield the new Chris Sims? We'll explain next on the Pregame PowerUp.
These are the moments that, people remember you by. So, you just got to go out there and, cut it loose and go out there and play and, trust your teammates, trust what you're prepared for throughout this entire year.
Bo Nix, one of 3 quarterbacks making their playoff debut this weekend. Sam Darnold will do so tomorrow night against the Rams, and Jaden Daniels will close out today's action against the BUCS. It's been tough sledding for first-timers against quarterbacks with playoff experience, overall covering just 34% of the time, and they have a record of 19-38 straight up since 2002. Not great. Nix, Daniels, and Darnold's teams all entered the season with odds to win the Super Bowl greater than 100-1.
Yikes.
So even if you're not that confident, it feels good to have that ticket. Overall, 34 teams have entered the playoffs after starting the season with odds that long. And what happened? Well, 16 lost in the Wildcard round, 10 lost in the divisional round, 3 lost in the conference, 1 lost in the Super Bowl, and 1 won the Super Bowl, Trey.
Yeah, that would be the 1990 Rams. Trent Green, their starting quarterback, got his knee blown out in the final preseason game. Dick Vermeil said, "We will rally around Kurt Warner and play good football." Greatest quote ever, because that's exactly what happened. They were 150 to win, 1 to win the season. After finishing 4-12, Kurt Warner took over, won both the MVP of the regular season and the Super Bowl. And that game famously ended with arguably the greatest tackle in Super Bowl history, as Kevin Dyson of the Titans was tackled on the 1-yard line 1 yard short of what would have been a potential tying touchdown, and the Rams went on to win that game 23-16 as time expired on that tackle. Side note, Mike Jones, St. Louis native, making that game-saving Super Bowl winning tackle for the St. Louis Rams at that time. Okay, here's a look at the current odds to win the Super Bowl following yesterday's action. No surprise, the number 1 seeds are the top 2 favorites, the Lions followed by the Chiefs. And if you look at the top 5, I would be shocked, absolutely stunned beyond belief, if one of those 5 teams wasn't the team hoisting the Lombardi Trophy when it's all said and done.
And if you disagree with Trey, now is the time, people, to make that bet because those odds will shift. The Commanders have lost 5 straight playoff games. In fact, they'll be looking to break a 19-year run without a postseason win. It's the 3rd longest drought in the NFL, behind the Raiders, who haven't won in 22 years, and the Dolphins, who haven't won in 24. Their last victory actually came against the BUCS in 2006. Here's a look at the box score from that one. Mark Brunell quarterbacking the team to victory by throwing for just 41 yards. Chris Sims, the losing quarterback for Tampa Bay. Great names Trey knows well from this game. Clinton Portis, Santana Moss, Cadillac Williams, Joey Galloway. Why aren't the names as cool like this anymore? Washington scored on a 51-yard fumble recovery touchdown by Sean Taylor, didn't he?
Yeah, worked with Mark Brunell for a little bit, a couple years at ESPN and NFL Live. And he's a good guy. Now he's doing really well in the coaching ranks. Hard to win, though, when your quarterback throws for 41 passing yards in a playoff game. Mark, I love you. That's just a fact, baby. That is just a fact. Okay, so more recently than that last postseason, these two teams have met. It was week 1 of the regular season in 2024. It was Jaden Daniels' debut, and the Buccaneers won that game 37-20 thanks to 4 touchdowns by Baker Mayfield. By the way, side note, since the start of last season, Baker Mayfield has thrown for more touchdown passes than anyone in NFL. 69 touchdowns. Yeah. The 57 combined points easily hit the over in that game with the total set at 42. The Bucs scored on 7 of their 9 drives of that game with just 1 punt and 1 kneel down at the end. But lots has changed since that matchup, especially when it comes to the development of the rookie quarterback for the Commanders, Jaden Daniels.
I mean, like I said, I watched the game again, and it's crazy just to see the growth over not even like a year. And you just learn something different each and every game. It was just something new. You just get more comfortable.
The game has slowed down for him. Just with the communication with everybody up front, getting guys on the same page, you can tell the game slowed down for him. His head's not spinning, and so he's able to really get detailed in on what fundamentally sound, whatever it's pass sets or run blocking, the footwork on that. So you can tell he's come a long way.
Yes, he has, quite significantly. So more recently, as we said, talking about what's going on here, the book expects a shootout with the highest game total on the Wildcard slate. They were 2 of the best teams at hitting the over this season, with the Bucs ranking 2nd, the Commanders 4th when it comes to going over the total. Bucs games have gone over the total in 4 straight, but bettors beware. Since 2003, totals of 50 or more have gone under more often than not, especially, Claudia, when the game is played outdoors.
Let's take a next-gen look at these offenses, starting with the Washington Commanders, and something that Jaden Daniels does very well, that is perform against the blitz. Among all rookie quarterbacks since 2018, Daniels ranks 1st in completions, passing yards, touchdowns, completion percentage, and quarterback rating against the blitz. Also, threw for the 6th most yards, tied for the 7th most touchdowns, while throwing just 1 interception when blitzed. And that is key here because he's facing a Bucs squad that blitzed on over 48%, almost 49% of pass rushes after their Week 11 bye. That's the highest in the NFL in that stretch. In Week 1, we saw this matchup. Tampa blitzed Daniels on over 47% of his dropbacks, their 2nd highest in any game prior to their bye. Now, what we've seen is key for Jaden Daniels against the blitz is finding his guy over here in Terry McLaurin, and the numbers just tell the story. McLaurin against the blitz, 43 targets, almost 30 catches, over 400 yards and 7 touchdowns. A pretty big jump from him to the other guys in Ertz and Zacchaeus. Now, let's take a look at this Bucs offense. It all starts with Mike Evans, as we know, the top target for them. He's usually matched up with Benjamin St. Juste, and Juste has done well against Mike Evans. 19 of his 25 routes, they've been matched up. We saw that in Week 1, allowing just 4 catches for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns as the nearest defender. However, Those numbers don't really matter because he's facing Marshawn Lattimore today, and that usually doesn't bode well for Mike Evans. He's been held without a catch against Lattimore in 5 of their 13 career matchups. Evans has caught 16 of his 31 targets, with Lattimore as the nearest defender in his career for just over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, but nearly half of those yards came in their 2 matchups in 2018. So certainly a goal for him today. Get at least 1 catch. 1 catch or 6 catches, because that's what the line is set at, 5.5. A little bit higher than McLaurin over there, 75.5 receiving yards for Evans, and a little bit of juice on that anytime touchdown. But like I said, it has been historically a tough matchup for Mike Evans.
Absolutely. He and Lattimore going up against each other. They've had a few fisticuffs in games when they were both in the same division. Lattimore was playing for the Saints. But let's go next-gen stats on the Bucs running game now. Bucky Irving forced a missed tackle on over 35% of his touches this season. That is the highest rate in the NFL. Irving gained an additional 609 yards after forcing a missed tackle, second most in the league behind the unstoppable force that is Derrick Henry. And Washington gives it up on the ground. They've given up 137.5 rushing yards per game. That is the 3rd worst in the league behind only the Bears and the Cowboys. They gave up the 5th most yards per carry in this league. Notice you don't see any other playoff team on this list. And of course, I alluded to this earlier, but when you can run the ball that effectively, it opens up things for Baker Mayfield. As I said, since the start of last season, nobody with more touchdown passes than Baker's 69 over the last 2 seasons. So,
and having Bucky Irving out of that backfield, too, being a pass catcher, we're going to talk about K-Dot and dealing with injury as well. That is huge for this offense.
Did you mention injuries?
I will. Yeah, let's talk about injuries.
It's like she knew exactly what was coming. It's like she looked at the rundown.
I've done this before.
It's incredible. Both teams pretty healthy coming into this one. For the Bucs, Antoine Winfield and Jamal Dean are listed as questionable, but Todd Bowles, the head coach, said they should be good to go. As Claudia was alluding to, Tampa could get Cade Otton back from that knee injury as he's trending in the right direction. Otton missed the final 3 games of the regular season. So for more on what to expect in this matchup and other topics, let's go back to our big man, Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, that was a big win for the Bucs to secure the division, and then they get the lift of making sure Mike Evans got the 5 yards he needed to go 11 straight seasons with at least 1,000 receiving yards, tying Jerry Rice for the most consecutive seasons all time. And he missed 3.5 games. How much momentum from all that positive juice can they carry over into this game against a totally different Commanders team than they played week 1?
Listen, I think they're going to try, but there's only so much. Listen, they won the division. That's exciting. They got Mike Evans, the goal, the incentive. Everyone's very happy about that. There's only so much excitement I can derive from beating Spencer Rattler. And so, listen, the playoffs are the playoffs. Todd Bowles is an experienced guy. Baker Mayfield, they've had experience in the first round of playoffs, so they'll be ready. But I don't think you can rely on what happened in Week 18 for anything moving forward, especially giving the matchup issues that Jaden Daniels and this Commanders team pose. Now, you've got your own matchup advantages as well, but they're going to prepare like any other team, and they've got to fill some gaps for sure on the defense specifically.
Spencer Rattler catching a stray. I did not see that coming from Marshall.
Claudia, continue. I just broke down specifically into the next-gen look at Jaden Daniels and his growth against the blitz specifically. But when you look at that Week 1 matchup, how much he's grown since then, what have you seen specifically in his game that makes you think they can put up a fight here?
Yeah, listen, that Week 1 was an impressive win, but I can't take a ton from that. It was just so long ago. He's since then been through a rib injury, been out for a little bit, and kind of had to retool. The Cliff Kingsbury experiment started well, and as it plateaued, there was a small decline, but I think that coincided with Daniel's injury, and actually their offense has been continuing to excel. And so I think he, as a quarterback, has continued to handle the blitz really, really well. That's what people want to do to young quarterbacks, is pressure them. He's 9th against the blitz, so he can really carve you up. And then he's using his legs in a more intentional way. And so the Bucs are bad against scrambling quarterbacks. I think he's going to take his moments. They're going to have some design QB runs. He's just an overall more complete quarterback from a decision-making standpoint. And so a rookie quarterback who you expect to make some mistakes, force some balls. He's not playing in that manner. And so he's protecting the football, allowing his team to kind of stay alive, and then making incredible plays to Terry McLaurin down the field and doing things with his legs. And so he's come such a long way. He's such an impressive quarterback, and he poses a real threat to this Tampa Bay defense.
Well, let's talk about this Tampa Bay defense for a second, because we all get enamored with Baker, and we mentioned the number of touchdowns and Mike Evans coming back and the way they produce on offense. This Tampa defense has gotten better down the stretch. What are the matchups within the matchups that you think this Tampa defense has to win for them to come away with a victory today?
Well, I think obviously they're going to be a high-flying offense where Washington's going to try to spread the field out, do things that Cliff Kingsbury likes to do, throw in these open voids with RPOs, use the zone read, creative run game. But ultimately, Washington is one of the top teams on 4th down and short yardage. They love getting in these situations. They go for it quite a bit. Maybe not on the Dan Campbell level, but they like to go for it. And Tampa is one of the worst teams in the league against short yardage. So those critical moments on 3rd and short, 4th and short, goal line are I think, going to be in Washington's favor. But if Tampa can overcome that with some scheme adjustment, whether that's packing more guys in, movement on the line, one of those things, those are going to be the moments, especially in play of football, when everything just gets condensed. All of the possessions, there's less possessions overall. Each one feels like it matters more. There's more pressure on every moment. If they can do more to keep this Washington offense off from converting those moments, either as touchdowns or as first downs, they have a chance to keep up with them in this game.
Marshall, I know it has nothing to do with today or the wild card weekend, but I'm going to sneak the Patriots in here because big news. You knew it. And hey, you played for the Patriots. You respect this. They finally make the decision to hire Mike Vrabel.
A year late.
Decision a lot of people think is a year too late, like Trey mentioned. What's your initial reaction, and what should Patriots fans expect from Mike Vrabel?
Well, listen, having played for both the Patriots organization and Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, I think it's a match made in heaven. I don't love how it came to be, just with the kind of the skirting of the rules that we have in place for hiring and firing coaches, but that's a whole nother conversation. I love the hire. Listen, all of the quote-unquote Bill Belichick surrogates have failed because in some manner they've tried to mimic Bill Belichick in his demeanor and his approach to personnel, and none of that's worked because none of them have been authentic. Mike Vrabel is as authentic as a coach gets. He has shown success on his own. The things that he takes from the Patriots are preparedness, a sense of toughness, getting the most out of the talent you have, but he's his own man. I think he's got to nail this offensive coordinator quarterback coaching hire because they have Drake May ready to go. He's a guy who that people believe can be a franchise quarterback. You cannot mess up his development. They've got a lot of other holes to fill, but I love the hire. It makes so much sense, and I think Patriots fans can expect good things and patience from Robert Kraft to get this thing turned around.
Listen, he out-Belichicked in Bill's last playoff game.
I was there
playing for Tennessee. And oh, by the way, greatest stat line of all time. As a player, he was a linebacker. In his career, 12 catches for 12 touchdowns.
Including 12. I thought it was 10.
No, 10 in the regular season, 2 on Super Bowl Sunday. Marshall, as always, we appreciate you. Coming up, we'll head back to Buffalo and find out what it takes to become a member of the Bills Mafia. We also have a hair-raising stat, kind of, on Sean Payton and Sean McDermott. We'll get into all of that. Stay with us. All right, you know how we end the show. We produce this thing so tightly we can't get everything in the show we want, so we lay it all out for you in the final segment called the Data Dump. And we start with Washington. Call them the comeback commanders. Washington has won 5 games in 2024 in which they trailed in the fourth quarter. That's tied for the most such wins in NFL this season with, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's also the most in the Commanders franchise history, Claudia.
And the Eagles may have the best passing defense in the NFL, but that shouldn't bother Matt LaFleur. When facing a defense that's allowing an average of 180 pass yards or fewer, the Packers head coach, 7-4 straight up, including 4-1 with Jordan Love. They've won the last 5 of these such games outright, Trey.
Okay, we try and find really weird stats for you, and this one is the weirdest maybe we've ever come across. Where else are you going to get a stat like this? Hat tip to Twitter user Xan, X-A-N, I think is how you say it. He crunched these numbers. Since 2017, Broncos head coach Sean Payton has a record of 30-12 against bald head coaches. That's a winning percentage of over 700, and Sean McDermott is like, really? Really? We're talking about my hairline when my team is in the postseason playing a home playoff game.
Thank you, Xan. You're doing the Lord's work.
Shout out to Xan for doing the work for us. But we appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back up to Buffalo because, as we know, Emerson's not going to just go to Buffalo without
he's already been fully immersed in the
becoming
experience.
one of the Bills Mafia members. So he took to the streets to find out exactly what he had to do to become part of
the initiation.
Bills Mafia.
As far back as I can remember, well, since I married into a Buffalo family almost 12 years ago, I always wanted to be in the Bills Mafia. To me, being in the Bills Mafia was better than being president of the United States. Even before I first wandered into the stadium parking lot for a playoff game against the Broncos, I knew that I wanted to be part of them. They weren't like anybody else. I mean, they did whatever they wanted. They slammed each other through tables, and no one ever tells them to go home. 90 minutes before every game, they shower a 68-year-old man in ketchup and mustard, and nobody ever calls the cops. Time to talk to fans about how I can feel like I belong to Bills Mafia. It's time to become a made man.
I want to become a member of Bills Mafia. What do you recommend I wear on Sunday?
Like a game jersey.
They got a lot of awesome starter jackets in here, like the vintage starter jackets.
What advice do you have for me?
You just show up at the game and have a couple Go Bills. Be into it. Just go Bills, baby.
Go Bills. You got to lean in. You got to take the shots. You got to eat the wings.
But everybody's cool. Everybody wants to eat.
Go get a Labatt, put yourself through a table, get to the Bills game early.
You got to find Pinto Ron. He's unreal.
You got to go watch Pinto Ron. I mean, getting the condiments sprayed on him is nuts. You can get down there and do everything. Get a pizza out of a filing cabinet. You can take a bowling ball shot.
Jump on a table.
Just don't hold back. You have to commit, and you have to go shoulder first, and I think you'll be good. Don't try anything fancy. Just go straight down.
Hey, hey, let's go Buffalo.
Let's go Buffalo.
Let's go Buffalo.
Let's go Buffalo.
All right, it's time. This is the moment of truth. Time for me to take my final step in my initiation into Bills Mafia. You know a table absolutely hates to see Bills Mafia coming. Listen, I'm scared. I'm very scared right now. I have no idea what to expect. Gentlemen, okay. This is the most nervous I've been in a very long time.
Hey, I think you got to get higher.
Higher? Holy crap. Okay, let's go. Here we go. One small step for man, one giant leap for Bills Mafia. Woo! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
That's going to leave a mark, and we appreciate that. Thanks for watching the Pregame PowerUp. For Emerson, Marshall, Claudia, I'm Trey. We'll be back tomorrow, regular time 6 o'clock, but Emerson will probably be in trouble.
Oh, I feel hurt just
medical coverage necessary.